Here it is. Nathan gives the word to David. David hears the word. But then David recognizes the need to confess. Verse 13 in chapter 12 says, then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. Nathan replied, the Lord has taken away your sin. Ooh, that's somebody should have shouted right there. Yeah, because it didn't matter. Sister Lehman, didn't matter how bad it was. Nathan said, the Lord has taken away your sin. You're not going to die, but here's the hard part. But because by doing this you have shown utter contempt for the Lord, the son born to you, ooh, my goodness, will die. That's one of the images of God that's so hard in the text. And it says in verse 15, after Nathan had gone home, the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had borne to David, and he became ill. David pleaded with God for the child. He fasted and spent nights lying in sackcloth on the ground. The elders of his household stood beside him to get him up from the ground, but he refused. He would not eat any food with him. On the seventh day, the child died. David's attendants were afraid to tell him the child was dead, for they thought while the child was still living, he wouldn't listen to us when we spoke to him. How can we now tell him the child is dead? He may do something desperate. David noticed that his attendants were whispering among themselves, and he realized the child was dead. Is the child dead, he asked. Yes, they replied, he is dead. Then David got up from the ground after he had washed, put on lotions, and changed his clothes. He went into the house of the Lord and worshiped. Then he went to his own house, and at his request they served him food, and he ate. His attendants, here it is, asked him, why are you acting this way? While the child was alive, you fasted and wept, but now that the child is dead, you get up and eat. He answered, while the child was still alive, I fasted and wept. I thought, who knows? The Lord may be gracious to me and let the child live, but now that he is dead, why should I go on fasting? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him, but he will not return to me. Let me put it in context for you. David said, when the child was still alive, I wept, I mourned, I fasted. You didn't understand what was going on, but now that the child is dead, you wondering why I'm no longer mourning, weeping, and fasting. You want me to stay stuck doing what I was doing when the child was alive, but the child is now dead. But you want me to keep doing what I was doing when the child was alive? No, I'm not going to keep repeating the same patterns of behavior that I was repeating when it was over here. I'm over here now, and I've got to do something. Hear me in this church. They wanted David to keep doing the same thing he was doing when the child was alive, but the child is dead, and now they're questioning him. Why are you doing something different? And here's what it reminds us, saints. When you keep it moving, change is always in order. Look at somebody and tell them change is always in order. And let me just preach to somebody. Let me preach to somebody in here. I'm about to slide into home plate because somebody said, "Oh, Drumwright, this ain't shouting stuff." We're going to shout in just a minute. Don't you let anybody tell you you stuck where you are. Change is possible if you have the desire to change. How many folk know what I'm talking about? And sometimes change does not come easy. Sometimes you try and you fail. 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 But how many people can testify that at that 189th time when you thought you were going to fall, God gave you some reinforcement, and you can testify for yourself that he may not come when you want him to come, but when God comes, God is always on time. Somebody better talk to me in this church today, because you have the power to change your attitude. You have the power to change your mobility. You have the power to change your direction. And saints of God, change is on the horizon. Preach to somebody like you've never preached to them before. Tell them change is on the horizon, and you can change if you want to change. That's what I appreciate about Representative Elijah coming. Even until he passed from this life, he was devoted to working for change in this country. Change for people of color. Change for all people. Change in the landscape. And saints of God, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that change is easy, but I do know that change is possible. How do you know, Daryl Drumwright? Because the Bible says with God all things are possible. Somebody open up your mouth and just say, with God all things are possible. Say it one more time. With God all things are possible.